Right then, boys and girls, here's my axe. I use this camping a lot. I've had it for probably coming on for 2 years now. It came with a pretty crappy mask. I do intend to make a slightly better one at some point. It's been modified by Mrs. Rob with a military button. And you basically just wind the string round until it stays on there tight. It stays on there tight. The axe has been dropped and it's punched through, so it needs cleaning. But what is my intention is to clean it up. I initially wrapped some cord around this part to try and protect it from I don't know if any of you guys are like me, but normally when I start using a new tool, this is much longer than the one I was used to, so I tend to overstrike and hit there. Now I'm used to using it, I don't think I need that. I've got some old leather laying around. I might wrap some leather around there, but the leather's not very good colour at all. I'm going to try and do something about this as well. It's not particularly healthy for the steel to be kept like that, and we're going to put a slightly better edge on it. The edge is, it's okay, it's not good, but the first thing I want to do is improve the handle, and there's dozens of ways you can do this. You can go at it with sandpaper, varying grits, if you don't mind a lot of work. Sandpaper on, I think this handle's varnished, I'm not entirely sure, but sandpaper on varnish is a very, very, very slow process indeed. So what I'll be using is one of them. I have varying sizes of these, but this small one, the 12-inch one has got rounded edges on it, so it's not really going to be much good. This small one, I don't know whether you can see it in the camera, if I can get it glinting on the light. The edges are 90 degrees. They are as good as you like. You could potentially use the back of your knife, but the process is quite simple. Any of you are about the same age as me, you know, late 30s, early 40s, you probably would have used a piece of spring steel in woodwork or school to, let's just put this mask back on. Never really work with an axe without its mask on unless you have to. Because if you catch yourself on it, you won't be working for much longer. Now all we do is, you can see I've already started this, I forgot, I should probably put a video on. All we do is quite literally scrape backwards and forwards. And whether you can see it or not, but this is taking loads and loads of varnish off with each stroke. When you get to a curve, because you're using a flat edge, when you get to a curve, you have to be very careful not to dig in. Now, like I say, I don't know how well you can see this, but I can actually see the varnish coming off almost instantly. And you can hear it as well. Now just there, we've got basically some damage from where the straight edge has been jumping. So a couple of seconds with a bit of sandpaper and the damage is gone. But I've been most of the way around this now. I think I've got this side left to do. Yes, this is a tedious process. I could probably be a lot easier and smoother and quicker with a spoke shave, but I don't have a spoke shave, so I will continue with my little 6-inch rule. I've already got some treatment for the handle mixed up that I use on, well, just about any raw wood. It's something that the missus knocked up, which is basically beeswax and olive oil mixed together, so it keeps the natural colour of the wood rather than darkening it. And I don't know about you guys, but most wood is actually, I've always found wood to be far more attractive in its natural colour than some of the colours that stain can give. You can also see between there and there, the handle down here is darker because this is where I put a collar on it to basically to protect it while I was getting used to the length of it. The other downside is my children use this sometimes. Yes, I let my children play with an axe. Well, I don't let them play with it, but I let them use it. So they've hit the axe in, I don't know what that is, I suppose it'd be called a yoke in there, wouldn't it? They've caught the axe in the yoke a few times. So it has taken a bit of a beating, but it seems to be holding out all well. And by the way, it's Hultafors Agdor. So it's Swedish. I didn't go for a grand for it because it just struck me as being too expensive. I don't use axes every day. You know, if I was using an axe every day, or I use this every single day, I would have obviously spent an awful lot more money. But I think even then, I wouldn't really call this a cheap axe. I'm pretty sure it was about 80 quid, which is about $100. Clearly about 80 euros, being as it seems to be £1 for euro these days. But you can see most of this is coming off very smoothly, very smoothly. It doesn't take long. And of course you can always, if you feel like this is getting a bit blunt, you can always get a sharpening stone out and rub this backwards and forwards on a sharpening stone to give yourself a slightly better edge. And what you're looking for is an even colour all over, if at all possible. Once you've got the even colour, you'll know you're down to the same place everywhere. Like I say, realistically, this should be done with a spoke shave or one of those small hand planes. You've got to get it back to wood, because otherwise the treatment that you put on there won't soak in. So now we've given it a once over with the ruler, we'll have a go with some sandpaper and see what we can do with that. Again, with a project like this, I've got a massive box of sandpaper here. Seriously, look at all that sandpaper. There's auto sandpaper, car sandpaper, all sorts in there. I guess I could probably have used one of these if I wanted to, but a little rule gives me much more control. The camera just slipped then, so I don't even know whether you can see what I'm doing. Maybe back somewhere slightly better. Yeah, that's better. Now we'll just give it a quick once over. It's difficult to tell whether it's back to wood or not. But we'll know as soon as we try and put some finish on it. Once we try to put the finish on it, if it's not de-varnished, the finish won't stick. This is 180 wood sandpaper. Given that it's an axe, it's a hand tool, you don't want it to have, or I don't want it to have a beautiful shiny finish. I like it. I like an axe to be at least a bit rough on the handle, so it will actually grip, or feel like it's going to grip anyway. Nothing worse than an axe that feels, or any hand tool that feels like it's going to fall out of your hand every time you use it. Like I say, I'm not going to go too mad with this. Just going to give it a quick go over. should open the pores in the wood up at least a bit. And I'd already done this side before I remembered I should video things like this, and this is why I don't put many videos up. It's mostly because I just forget. I've got this ridiculous excuse for a sheath for, I don't know how I'm going to get this out without knocking the camera flying, but for this, which is a Brazilian Tramontina. This needs work on it, the handle needs improving because the handle's not very good, and I wanted to make a sheath for it, but this is the third go. As you can see, fail abysmally, so I'm going to start that one again, but this time, since I've made most of my mistakes and I don't have to publicly highlight just how much of an amateur I am at things like this, I'll actually video the entire process. You can see there's still some varnish on here. Now, I recently did this to a rifle stock, and my god, it took so much sanding. I'll show you the rifle stock in a bit. I like woodworking. The mainstay of my experience with kind of production work is actually welding and fabrication. I mean, obviously now I'm a programmer, but wood is so easy to work with. You can quite literally work on wood with stones and stuff like that. Unlike steel, where everything needs a special tool. The camera's still going. Well, like I said, I'm not going to go too mad on it. I'm not really worried about the top end here. It's mostly just the handle that I want to get. I want to add some details. I want to try and come up with the markers and maker's mark of some description or another. Maybe initially just draw it on and then make myself one of them things you put in the coals, a brand that I can brand wooden items and leather items. But I reckon that's probably about it. That feels so much better now. It hasn't got the varnish on it. It just feels like a piece of wood. So I'm going to turn you off. And go and get the other bits and pieces I need. Right, Miss is going to be well peeved when she comes home because she only hooved in here before she went to work. And now darling hubby has just made it messy. Right, I don't know the ratio of beeswax to whatever to olive oil, but that's beeswax and olive oil mixed together. I've got a nice pure cotton loose weave rag. You can see right through it. I'll use that because then the rag will actually hold substance, and you can also see it's quite goopy. Now we apply it very liberally and put lots on there. This is exactly the same process I use for any wood that I've prepped or I'm going to use in any way, shape or form. There's bits of wood all over the house in different places that have had this exact same thing. So you literally plaster it on there to start with. And obviously because it's made of beeswax, it smells delightful. Well, some of you are probably sitting there thinking, oh my god, you're putting wax on a hand tool. Isn't it just going to slip out of your hands? Surprisingly, no it doesn't. Because I think what the wax does is it soaks into the wood. And you still end up with the grain. Now obviously on a summer's day, I think 30-40 degrees, potentially the wax could melt, but it's never done it to me. Which is great if you ask me. So once you've got a nice liberal coating all over it, now it's burnishing time. Now I'm supposed to use wire wool, but I don't have any. So we'll take the piece of cloth that had all the wax in it, we fold it right up in the middle out of the way, and get yourself a nice buffing pad, and then rub like mad. Nope, you're going to fall off the little workbench. You probably can't see what I'm doing either. Let's move it over there a bit. And we rub like mad all over it. Now you need to do this a few times. I did my air rifle stock initial prep and sanding, which was about 4 hours, and I coated it immediately afterwards with this. Then I did it once a week for about 3 or 4 weeks, and the air rifle stock has come out lovely. It's difficult to tell at this point whether this will be any good or whether it's just going to be too slippery, because my hands are now covered in wax. But I think the wax mixes with the oil quite literally and soaks in. And what you end up with is a very usable handle. Ooh, that looks crude, you think? Hey, camera. Right, you can see my hands are shiny. It's very hard to tell, but it doesn't feel slippery. Let's see if we can get this in focus, and you can see what it looks like up close. It looks fabulous. This just takes to the wood so well. But that's step one in the process. That's the handle finished. I won't do anything else to that. I am considering putting a small leather collar around there, because as I say, the children do use this, and children are not very accurate with axes. But the next step is to do something about this head. It's chopped pine, birch, more pine, and obviously it's stained. I've actually used this axe. I've managed to get it sharp enough at some points to skin animals with. So we'll move on to the next step, and we'll do something about this messy axe head. Well, I don't know how well the light is doing in here. Don't look too bad. But what we're going to do is try and get rid of this writing, and try and remove some of this staining, so that we can actually let the axe take its own pattern over time. The axe has got a rough finish. Now I'm not going to sit here for the next 17 hours and try and take that rough finish off. What I want to do is just clean it. So I'm going to use a piece of Scotch-Brite. I don't really know what to use to clean this, but one thing I have learned over time, if I can actually get this open, I must have been angry when I've done that up. Jesus. What we're actually going to use, some cellulose thinners. Do be careful with this stuff, guys. The window's open, so I won't float too much. It will get you out your box. More importantly than that, it's incredibly flammable. So we'll just have a little go with this and see what it does. Well, that's instantly taken the writing off. Oh look, what a surprise. A cat hair. Sorry, it's a cat fur, isn't it? It's not actually a hair. I'm going to try and work some more of these darker areas up to a brighter colour. And with everything, always try and do things in a circular motion. If you're working on a handle like this, you want to go up and down rather than in circles. If you're working on a flat area, you want to go in a circular motion. Probably teaching you to suck eggs, but hey. But you can see that's coming up really quite nicely, quite quickly. I'm not going to go too mad because I want it to take its own pattern over time. There's a couple of darker bits there that I want to get rid of. Not stains as such, but another thing that's always incredibly handy when you're doing work like this is small blocks of wood and the like. If I turn that over, you can see this side's stained an awful lot more than the other side. It doesn't have any logos or anything on it. Again, just give it a quick once over. And then slowly but surely over time as it's used, it will take its own pattern. Which is one of the best things about using natural materials. They evolve. I think that'll do, so we'll get the lid back on that straight away. And we'll put the cellulosey rag up there on the windowsill. I'm just going to go and grab something to give it a wipe off. Right, you want trusty old cotton t-shirt. And let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that logo and a lot of the dirt that was on here. Maybe you can see that, but I just caught myself with the corner of the axe. This is what I mean about being incredibly careful when you're working with a cutting tool of any kind. Now, this only has, as you can see, a very short edge, which makes it quite steep. The angle is quite high. I must confess, I do prefer to have a thinner edge than a narrower edge than a deeper edge. I use this to do the main shaping. This is a cross cut. This one cuts both ways on one side, but one way on the other. So if you look down here, you can kind of see. This is a bit of a bad camera, but I've already reshaped this, and then it's not super sharp. Try that on a piece of paper. I think all of the paper here is wet. As you can see, it's not particularly sharp. But, as anyone who's watched any of my videos will know, I am really bad at sharpening things. But, on a bench, with a DC3 and a barking squirrel out the back, we'll see if we can't give it a slightly better edge than it's got. I'm only talking slightly better. As I say, I am bad at sharpening things. Don't ask me why. When I do this, I can see where I'm going. I can see the buff going onto the edge of the axe. My missus has watched me sharpening knives, axes, everything. She swears blind. I'm not very good at keeping the angle consistent. So what I'm doing here is trying to keep the angle as consistent as possible. I'm also trying to keep my fingers away from the lower edges of the stones. So if I do push too far, I don't cut myself open. And what I'm looking for, or at least I think I'm looking for, is an even colour all the way across the edge. Now we all know what's supposed to happen is you're supposed to end up with a burr on this side, which I have, which you then take off and you flip backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. I'm not worried about this being sharp enough to cut the hair off with my arm, but I probably should be. So this time around, we'll only do it for half as long. So we'll go all the way up to that end. And all the way back the other way. And that should be deburred. And both swung around the other way, so I'll flip it back over the other way. Well, this time I won't push it hard, I'll just do it ever so gently. And we've got some A4 over here. And we'll have a look and see what we can do. Yeah, as you can see, it's actually worse now than it was before. This is why I tend to be very careful with the tools that I use, because I just cannot sharpen things for the life of me. Which is really quite frustrating, because I do like tools, I like knives. You see, once it actually gets going, it's not too bad. But what I've always wanted is to be able to sharpen my own tools to this kind of sharpness. Which clearly I can't, and it doesn't seem to matter how much I practice, it never comes out. But what we've got now is a slightly better looking axe. I'll never need to worry about a pattern on it now, because it'll build its own pattern over time. All I've got to do is learn how to sharpen it properly, so I don't end up cutting my feet off or something. And remember to put another coat of wax on it in a few days' time, because that's already soaked in. And I only put the wax on halfway through the start of this video. That'll be about it for the axe. If I make any more mods to it, I'll remember to put it in there. But what you have got to look forward to is laughing at me trying to make a sheath for a 20-odd inch machete. Thanks for taking the time to watch, guys, and I'll see you when I see you next. Bye.